Good evening. Welcome to the February 6th, 2019 meeting of the Gaithersburg Planning Commission. First up is the approval. Well, actually, I should mention that Phil Wessel is joining us on the dais this evening and is participating, as all of the regular commissioners are present. Thank you, Phil. First up is the approval of our minutes from January 16th, 2019. Is there a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the minutes of January 16th as read into the record.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously. I think we do have record plots tonight, right, Trudy?
That is correct.
All right. And here comes Ray Rose. It's going to be your show tonight, it looks like, right?
Yes, I've got a couple items on the agenda.
A couple.
Tonight we have 7 plats for your approval. One for the FedEx facility at 800 North Frederick and 6 other ones for the subdivisions in the Chase at Quince Orchard development. Staff has reviewed all of the plats and they are ready for your approval.
What were the 6 for? What was the, was it old lots that were just?
The Chase. Oh,
It's for the new subdivision for the Chase development, financing the Johnson property.
Got it. Okay, any questions?
No.
All right, is there a motion for the record plat agenda?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the record plat agenda as presented this evening.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Okay, first up is, or next up is the public hearing for ASDP 8089-2018. This is to allow private education as a permitted use for a property located at 438 North Frederick Avenue. I'm going to stop there because, Ray, I think are we going to do this concurrently with the
Yes.
site plan? So let me let you then read it all in and what we're going to do with this concurrent item.
Okay. This is a public hearing on amendment to concept plan ASDP 8089-2018. The applicant, Lauren Worth, representative of the property owner, submitted the application on November 27, 2018. The applicant is requesting to allow private education as a primary or permitted use at 438 North Frederick Avenue. The property is located within the North Frederick Avenue subdivision and is bounded by North Frederick Avenue on the north, Sardi's to the south, and Gaithersburg Square to the west. The property is located in the CD Corridor Development Zone. Site Plan S620 was approved by the Planning Commission as the concept, preliminary, and final site plan for the property, and that's what we're amending tonight. This application comes before the Planning Commission as a public hearing pursuant to Section 24-198C of the City Code. Following the courtesy review that was presented to the Mayor and City Council on January 7th, 2019, the Council directed staff to have the amendment be referred to the Planning Commission for a public hearing and final action. The hearing was duly advertised in the January 17th and January 24th, 2019 issue of the Washington Post, and the property was properly posted with signage. At the present time, there are 12 exhibits in the record file, and all exhibits are referenced in the exhibit list. All of the individual exhibits may be reviewed during the course of this meeting on the city's webpage or at the Planning and Code Administration during regular business hours. Any objections to any exhibits should be noted prior to the closing of the record. Otherwise, the exhibits will be deemed received into evidence. Since the applicant is only requesting a change in use, both applications ASDP 8089-2018 and AFP 8078-2018 have been filed concurrently. Since the amendment to the concept plan application is a minor amendment, staff is of the opinion that the Planning Commission can close the record and take final action on both of these 2 applications tonight. Here tonight to present the application and answer questions is the applicant, representative for the property owner Lauren Worth, and the prospective tenant Kwame Dickerson of Cambridge Nursing.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Lauren Worth. I'm with MHG. We are the civil engineering firm representing the applicant. We appreciate all of staff's efforts on the project and concur with staff recommendations. As Ray indicated, we are proposing a change in use for 1,877 square feet of what was previously an office use and will become private educational use. The site currently has 225 parking spaces. Can we switch to thank you. There's currently 225 parking spaces on the site, and the requirement is 221 parking spaces. So we are adequately parked on the site, and we are proposing no changes to the site or the exterior of the building. We're here to answer any questions that you might have.
All right. Will you at some point come back or apply for by right signage for the new use, or is that not unnecessary?
At this point in time, we're not planning on changing any signage, but we will come back before you if we do.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Just a general question. I mean, we're talking about 1,800, almost 1,900 square feet of space.
Right.
It's internal. It's inside a building that's already been for multiple uses. Why are we having this presentation? Can you just explain a little bit more? I mean, it seems...
It's a requirement in the CD zone when there's
Right.
a change of use beyond what was already approved originally, that it does have to go through the same process every time. This particular use, a nursing school, we had to qualify as private education, which is a use different from office, which is previously there in retail. So that difference is the reason why I had to come before you.
Mr. Chairman, in the future, can we look at the rules again and possibly...
Lloyd, I know I bored you last meeting, but this is all we talked about.
Right.
Yeah, so we're working on it.
You'll need a text amendment, but that's it.
I understand, but I'm just saying, I think this is something that...
This is one of the reasons that we, as part of the changes to the
Fine,
CDs.
okay, just, thank
Yeah,
you.
it's a great example of one,
It
actually.
is.
All right. By the way, not to diminish at all the importance of
Right.
this.
No, this is... No.
We want to make it easy for you.
Any other questions?
No.
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to comment or testify on this application? Okay, seeing no one. Recommendation, ready, please.
Staff recommends that the Planning Commission, based on the evidence and testimony submitted excuse me, into the record and findings in the staff analysis, approve Amendment to Concept Plan ASDP 8089-2018 and adopt the resolution, finding it in compliance with Section 24-160G.6, 24-160G.7, 24-198C, with two conditions. Those conditions are as follows. The commercial space be limited to the square footage shown on the site plan, 1,270 square feet. That's pulled through from the previous one. And the applicant is exempt from filing covenant in the land records of the county pursuant to Section 24-198B. Staff also recommends that the Planning Commission, based on the exhibits submitted, the applicant's testimony, and the staff report findings and recommendations, grant AFP 8078-2018, finding it in compliance with Section 24-170 and 24-172A of the City Code with those same two conditions.
Okay. So it says commercial space, it's already commercial space there, so
Right.
don't you want to say educational, or does that,
Some commercial.
the commercial space is?
So the commercial space, in the bottom of the building, there's a little bit of commercial
It's
space
retail.
outside of the office. That was on the original site plan as a requirement that they couldn't come in the future and use any of the office as commercial retail space. Does that make sense?
No, I understand, but the condition says the commercial space, right, to be limited to the square footage shown on the site plan, 1,200. There's actually more commercial space there now already.
The commercial space, this is just a carryover of a condition from the original site plan, is that correct?
Yes.
We're calling it commercial, what we're really talking about is retail.
We're approving or we're recommending that you approve the educational in the office area, but the site plan carries through with the limitation of the commercial, the
Got it, I
existing
understand.
commercial.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay, I understand. I thought the condition related to the application, but I see what you're saying. Okay, and they have to be on both, the conditions have to be on both
I
components?
believe so.
Okay.
That's
I
incorrect.
guess everything, really, right? It has to be on everything.
Yeah.
All right, any issues with the proposal?
No.
Nope.
No, I think it's obviously a compatible use, and I think some of the concerns about mixing those uses are not particular to this site, so I think it's a great added use.
It is. Good, all right, well then we need a motion, please, on the use, the application for the change of use. So that's ASDP 8089, is there a motion, please?
Mr. Chair, I move that the planning commission, based on the evidence and testimony submitted into the record and the findings in the staff analysis, approve amendment to concept plan ASDP-8089-2018 and adopt the resolution finding it in compliance with sections 24-160G.6, 24-160G.7, and 24-198 with the two conditions read into the record.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Is there a motion, please, on the amended final plan?
Mr. Chair, I move that the planning commission, based on the exhibits submitted, applicant's testimony, the staff reports, findings, and recommendation, grant AFP 8078-2018, finding in compliance with section 24-170 and 24-172A of the city code with the two conditions as read into the record.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously.
you.
Thanks very much. Good luck.
Thank you.
Great to see you setting up in the city. All right, that takes us to our site plan agenda. The first up on that one tonight is, actually, it's going to be the second site plan on our site plan agenda since that first one was done concurrently. For AFP-8063-2018, Washingtonian and Rio Center Boardwalk expansion located between the Rio Building and Washingtonian Lake in the MXD mixed-use development zone. And this is an amendment to final site plan. And again, presenting from staff is Ray Rokes. Good evening, Ray, again.
Good evening again. Staff is before you to introduce application AFP 8063, 2018. The applicant is requesting an amendment to final site plan to renovate and expand the existing boardwalk along Washingtonian Lake, roughly located between here. The renovation includes new boardwalk materials, new pedestrian seating, a fire pit, and a new stage. The subject property is zoned MXD, mixed-use development, and is located within the Washingtonian and Rio shopping centers, adjacent to the Rio building at 9811 Washingtonian Boulevard. And if I can direct your attention to the screen, we have a drone footage of the site.
Of course. I wish it wasn't so cool.
Why is that?
No, it could be more,
I'm more
more
critical.
obnoxious about it.
Here to the east end of the
Yeah, the easel.
waterfront is with the outdoor seating of Taratai and the
Yeah.
boat launch. Here in the middle is the atrium to the Rio building and several entrances to the side. And this location is the soon-to-be Silver Diner,
Right.
and there's soon-to-be outdoor seating. And currently, the boardwalk material terminates onto the concrete pad here,
Right.
where the Rio building is located. And roughly the proposed work ends about here.
How did you shoot that when there was absolutely nobody there?
That's hard to do.
Early in the morning.
Yeah.
Very cold.
That's
very cold, yeah.
Oh, the lake still isn't frozen though.
And if
Yeah.
there's anything you'd like to return to this video during the meeting, just let us know.
Cool.
They're very careful to follow all of the drone rules.
The drone rules,
Yes.
right,
Yes.
right.
Can't be over people.
No drones are harmed in the use of the.
No persons either. No privacy violation.
Right.
So here tonight to present the application and answer questions is Jeff Piranha of the Peterson Companies.
Thank you, and thanks for having me here. And
Good
we
to have
look
you
forward to
back.
this
Haven't heard from
new.
Jeff in a while.
We look forward to renovating the Rio Washingtonian Center with these new enhancements. As Ray showed so nicely in the drone footage, this area right in here is kind of that gray, cold, hard concrete. So there are a couple of things as we start to renovate basically all of Washingtonian over the next 3 to 4 years. You guys will probably be tired of me soon. But nonetheless, this is phase one. And so we are starting at this end of the project. And we were in here 2 months ago for Silver Diner. There's a lot of work going on in the building. So we're very excited to break ground here. We thought it'd still be cold outside. But we plan to start this work soon and open this up hopefully around Memorial Day. So if I could, I'd like to start on this end down here. that gray cold area outside of the terratai seating, we plan to put a turf area in here. This is a padded turf. It's got an integrated pad. It's specifically made for playgrounds and kids, and so we've used this at a number of locations very successfully, mainly at our National Harbor project. We put it in 2 great areas, and people absolutely love it. Out here in the corner, instead of the old little stage, impromptu stage that was put out there, we are going to put an Ipe, very nice stage in that area, and put a tensile structure. There are some photos in the following slides that we'll be able to show you. We then have a raised stadium seating is probably the wrong word in this area right in here, that centers towards the stage, and we'll have a fire pit at the base. So when it's not used on a cold winter night, people can just kind of gather around this fire pit. There are benches and other things in this area. As Ray showed, this area along here is where we will expand the boardwalk. We are putting a slightly less than 5,000 square feet of new boardwalk in front of the real building. What we found is there's a pinch point right here at the rotunda that people can't actually see around, and Guapos and Union Jackson, Terratai, and people just have a tough time connecting that. So we did some visual sight lines, and that's how we came up with this new line. And so the sight lines from way back by CPK and Copper Canyon all of a sudden can look all the way down in this direction, which led us to, let's pull our boats over to this center. So it was interesting doing the sight lines and everything to reinvent the wheel here. So we're going to move this, and let's see. As we move down here, what we wanted to do between Silver Diner and the courtyard is create a little paseo with festoon lighting over top, and actually pull the boardwalk out to this drop-off area. I've got another image of something that we saw that was really quite inviting, and we were looking for a way to pull people between the 2 buildings and get them out to the water. This area right in here, we have found these really unique, pretty cool high-back benches that we want to put in there. And again, I have a photo of those. We go to the next slide. So this is the rendering of this area where we have the corner stage, the tensile structure, the fire pit, and then the raised kind of stadium seating in this area. As shown here in red, we're going to put a screen. We don't, it's probably not the greatest thing to look right down on people dining inside the Terratai outdoor cafe space. So, and here's the relocated paddle boat docks. Next. Here are some various images taken from different points of view. Some of these images are more marketing. There are some things wrong with these images. They're slightly off. Ray knows what they are. But generally, as part of this, we're going to put in new railings along all of the boardwalks. Some of them are different types. Some of them are failing. And so what we have done, we've done a really, we like the railing we put up over at National Harbor. It's a stainless steel cable rail. And so we are pulling that same design over here. It's got a little nautical curve to it, and I have a photo of it. But these are different views of the, this is Silver Diner here. This is an aerial view from the same rendering, or the same view we just had. This is towards Silver Diner as well, and this is one of Ray's drones photos from back further. Next. These are some of the products that we plan to use. This is an image, and there's another photo of it as well, of the small fire pit. We think it's appropriately sized for the space that we have. This is the Sin Play material that we have in the turf area. You can see the integrated pad beneath it. This area, or this photo here, that was the vision for the extended boardwalk out towards the traffic circle in front of the marquee. Benches that we have located along the boardwalk will look like this one. This is the grand image we had for the stadium seating area in front of the fire pit looking at the stage. And here's a photo of these high back benches that we plan to use. Next. Here's another photo of these high back benches, a little close in. This black stone material, there are 2 large columns that come down at an angle at this pinch point that we mentioned, and they continually get beat up, and we decided we've kind of had enough of that. So we're going to veneer those with a stone hard material. This photo and the one below it are a representation of the festoon lighting we'd like to put between the Rio building and the screen wall for the courtyard. Here's a photo that I took the other day of our railings at National Harbor, and that is what we would like to do. We are actually proposing to put a small mock-up over there in the next week or two, and just to make sure everything is perfect. This last image here is around the bump out in front of the floating docks. We liked this image. There are these big wood benches, basically big wood blocks that people sit on at the water's edge. And so we only have these in special locations at the center of the pop-out. And that's it for our show.
Great.
Thank you.
Does this change well, let's see, right now you have seating for the restaurants attached to each of the restaurants that
Yes.
kind of spills out onto the boardwalk or comes up to the edge of whatever lease lines are. Does this change that at all? Like, will you be inviting people to go out onto the area where the fire pit is and all and be served by some of the restaurants or bring something with them? Or no? Okay.
Each restaurant will have its own dedicated space behind its own railings for
So that won't change.
alcohol
None of that will
purposes.
change.
None of that
The
changes,
current
yeah.
limits of all that will stay
Yeah,
where it is
so it's
now.
just a public space.
Yeah.
As an architect, when I look at it, I'm like, it's just cold space, and the company realized that, and we needed to improve that.
And the tensile structure at the bandstand, that would stay up year-round? You wouldn't
Yes.
take it apart and put it away in the winter?
Yes. Yep.
Nice presentation. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Thank you.
I was just gonna ask, trash cans, waste baskets, where are they gonna be strategically located on the boardwalk, or, I didn't see anything in the plans for that?
Yeah, none are shown on the plans. We have them sporadically located throughout the property. As a part of this, we're going to be replacing some miscellaneous, the light fixtures around the boardwalk, the trash cans. So there's an overall Washingtonian plan to replace a lot of these things that have been now, they're 15 years old.
Right.
And so, yes.
Because I can imagine around, especially around the pit area, there'll be a lot of people carrying food and waste and stuff.
Yes, yeah. So the answer to your question is yes, we will be replacing all of those. Sorry.
Will they be coming, will we be seeing them, or will staff be seeing them before? So they're compatible with the rest of the design?
Sure, we can certainly do that, absolutely.
Do we review trash cans typically?
Sometimes they're included, sometimes they aren't. It's,
We throughout the project, we use a Victor Stanley brand. It's, I don't know if that means anything to anybody, but it's they're nice, they're very nice.
You could go- you could-
all
you
I
could
can
Sink
say.
it to the ground.
Yeah.
Since they have to submit a revised plan, you can put a
If you would.
detail of that
Sure.
on
That'd be
that
helpful.
thing.
Thank you.
So this is just one question, and maybe this is an item that's going to be clarified, but I'm looking at the actual black and white drawings, and over on the side by the bandstand, as the boardwalk wraps around and sort of ties into the existing, there is what looks like, and I'm hoping this is just a graphic error, about a 20-foot gap between all of the new stuff and where it says existing to remain. Yep, right on that drawing. If you
Which
pan
exhibit is
down, keep going down, right there. See where the nice gray hatch for the new boardwalk, right where your mouse was. And if you keep going to the left, oh, you just crossed what looks like a giant gap on the drawings. I'm assuming the intent is to tie that in. The note says that the existing to remain is right there, is the line to the left, and the new is the line to the right. So,
No, you're correct. At right here is the boardwalk actually heads in this direction.
Yep.
And so right now, that's our demarcation point of where this project starts and stops, and this railing heads this way
Okay.
Got it.
towards
Hey,
Squapos.
Squapos.
And
That's what I was assuming was happening,
No,
but
no.
I just wanted to make sure
you
that.
you have a sharp eye.
I had a quick question about the railing. How tall is it? And I guess it's low enough so a little fenster can't get through it and
Actually,
take a dive for the swans.
we have worked with Rob of the city. So the railings by code are 42 inches tall.
Okay.
And the distance between the cables is 4. Rob has recommended they be 3, so we adjusted that upon his last review.
And it's
And,
down lower so no one can sneak under it.
Yeah.
Good,
Yeah.
good.
So that they can't stretch.
Yes, yeah.
Look, Ma.
Although, just as an
Yeah.
aside, for a long time, there were no railings along a good part of the
Yeah,
boardwalk. So
yeah.
how is that allowed to happen? Is there another classification for?
Own risk.
No idea, okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, my understanding is the code does not require railings on the water side. Think of Washington Harbor and other things, and that's why it wasn't required here when we
In
did.
Baltimore, yeah.
We put them here, we thought the families here, we just thought that was the right thing to do here, and,
Yeah.
and so.
Oh, yeah.
Now, when we look at it, we're like, it's just too massive. We like the cable rail look, and the stainless steel is a high quality. They're really expensive.
I mean, it looks nice and it serves a safety function, a great safety function. Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right, any other questions on the presentation? Is there anyone in the audience who would like to comment on this application? Okay. No comments tonight. Ray, what's the recommendation, please?
Staff recommends that the Planning Commission, based on the exhibit submitted, the applicant's testimony, and the staff report, findings and recommendation, grant AFP 8063, 2018, amendment to the final site plan boardwalk expansion, finding it in compliance with section 24-170 and 24-172A of the city code with one condition, condition being applicant must submit revised final site plans as required to obtain approval by the Department of Public Works and Planning staff prior to the issuance of any permits.
So there was some discussion about adding the trash receptacles. Maybe we just add a general note as part of the condition that revised final site plans with hardscape details, and it ends up a staff approval.
Accessories.
Or accessories,
Yeah,
yeah.
accessories.
What we were getting them to provide is actually a detail of the festoon lightings and a detail of the some other landscape issues, so it would actually be in the spirit of what we were already getting them to do.
Great.
Fairly easy
So
to
you
add.
think you've got it covered then?
I think it is.
Good, okay.
Good.
You guys okay with that?
Yep.
Mhm.
Cover what you're, nice work. I think it's gonna be a good plan. Is there a motion?
Well, I
Or
just
any
want to
discussion?
make a point, because one of my pet peeves is pedestrian friendliness. Great project, love it, I think it's gonna attract a lot of people. And the problem right now that when you go there is parking, and it always will be, which is a good thing. People are gonna be coming. We've got a real high-density residential community about a half a mile, maybe a quarter mile away, Crown Farm. And yet, if I wanted to park in Crown Farm, go to a restaurant in Crown Farm, and then walk over, because I've got a parking space in Crown, and walk over to this new project, or to what exists, I take my life in my hands, especially around the traffic circles. And I was just wondering if the city, and this is not the Peterson Company, but if the city could work with maybe Crown and your company to figure out a way to get it so that people can walk more easily between the two projects. Number one, either a shuttle bus or something that will allow parking in both areas so that you can, it would be, there's synergy there, definitely a synergy. And they both complement each other. Both of those projects really do a great job. And I think it's going to attract a lot of people, not just from Gaithersburg, but from around surrounding county and maybe other places. So I'd like to take that into
Judy,
consideration.
do we still have Fields Road intersection improvements yet to be completed that would
No,
attack some of
those
that?
are completed.
They're all
The-
completed, okay.
The fields, you're talking about the circles on Washington.
The circles and even
Right.
crossing Field Road now.
And, I mean, we just added, they added new, I believe, new crossing item,
Fields?
you know, countdown timers. I'm not real
By the
positive.
circle or
No,
Fields?
at the intersection of Fields Road, and we added the sidewalk that wasn't there along Rio Boulevard, so you could get pedestrians there. there's a sidewalk crossing right where the bus stop is, if you come up Rio Boulevard, and then there's a
Right.
crossing there, and then pretty good connectivity in through that part of,
Okay.
to go down to the area where the stage is, in between Rio Grande and what was the Crab Shack. And
Would the city also consider perhaps wayfinding between the two major projects? Because it is, I mean, there's so much synergy there for people, not just residents, but for people around the area that come in,
well,
to know that they can go, you know, to park at one place and walk to the other, instead of getting
Well-
back in the car and trying to find another parking space.
I know that there are some improvements proposed for Ellington Boulevard, and we haven't seen those yet. Is that correct, Greg? The improvements on Ellington Boulevard and
Yes, that's correct.
that. Maybe we could bring that in as part of that.
Great.
Good point.
I mean, that is a good point. We heard lots of comments in previous,
Yeah.
you know.
Pedestrian
plans,
friendliness,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, from the community about making it pedestrian friendly, and because they wanted to be able to travel back and forth to both
Great
locations,
projects, both.
which makes sense.
Thank
All
you.
right, any other comments,
Thank you.
concerns?
Just a certain personal joy that it's gonna drive Architectonica nuts that you're gonna put tile on their columns. It's fantastic.
Do they even still exist?
That's joy?
They're out there.
They're out
They
there?
pop their little heads up every once in a while. Yeah. But,
If
so
we
thank
could-
you for that.
If we could keep the material on the columns, it would be great, but
No, I think you're doing
It's an
exactly the
architect's,
right
it's an
thing.
architect's vengeance over
It
here.
is, it is. Petty, but it's fun. But thank you, it's a great design. I think it's great.
Yeah.
In this Miami Vice. You've been impressed tonight. So, any other relevant comments, I guess?
I don't have any relevant comments.
Very good. All right, if not, is there a motion, please?
Mr. Chair, I move that the Planning Commission, based on the exhibits submitted, applicant's testimony, staff reports, findings, and recommendation, grant AFP 8063-2018 amendment to final site plan Boardwalk expansion, finding it in compliance with section 24-170 and 24-172A of the city code with the one condition as discussed.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that passes unanimously. Thanks very much. Good luck.
Thank you.
Look
Great
forward
to
to
see you
seeing you
back.
again and
Yeah.
again.
see you in a couple months. On something else.
How's the Silver Diner coming, by the way?
It's under construction. I've been there today.
Okay, great. All right, very good. Next up, we have a discussion topic, kind of unusual for our agenda, but that is on the Parks, Recreation, and Culture element of the master plan draft. I see Rob, I see Michelle, so I'm not sure who's taking.
I am starting off.
Okay.
So good evening, Commissioners. After a number of years, we're very excited. We have the draft of the Parks, Rec, and Culture Master Plan getting ready to move forward. And as we had done with historic preservation at the request of Planning Commission, we wanted to bring this back before you for essentially a last bite at the apple before we begin formal advertisement. So as we did with historic preservation this evening, Michelle and Denise are going to walk you through the element. Hopefully you had a chance to review the document, offer any input. The goal will be make any amendments that are necessary and hopefully get it out for the 60-day comment period beginning next week with anticipated public hearing potentially in May. This is an amendment to the community facilities element and really updates the last Parks, Rec, and Culture plan that was done in the late 90s. Again, they're going to walk you through. This is not a public hearing. We're not looking, we're really just looking for your input, much as you did with historic preservation. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Denise and Michelle.
Hello, good evening.
Thank you so much, Rob. Good evening, Chairman Bauer, members of the Planning Commission, and staff. We are here tonight to share the Parks, Recreation, and Culture, a master plan element. This has been a project in our strategic plan for many years. In fact, some of you attended the kickoff meeting held on March 10, 2016. I know the date because I cross-referenced the notes to ensure that we covered your ideas and our content. I would like to thank the division chiefs, Denise Kaiser here to my left, Terry Lynn Laws sends her regrets, Jim McGuire, and our newest member of our team, Carolyn Ryan. I would also like to thank Charles Reed, the Superintendent of Parks, Mark Scafidi, a Division Chief in the Department of Public Works, Britta Manaka for editing, the stormwater management and GIS teams for their contributions, as well as Lauren Emanuel, a part-time employee who worked tirelessly on this document, and she's also present tonight. Trust me, this document is a citywide endeavor, and it took a village. The plan was also distributed to the members of the senior leadership team for review. You can see a few photos that exemplify the aspects of all that our department does here on this page. This is an outline of the Parks, Recreation, and Culture element structure. We begin with an introduction followed by 3 core chapters focusing on parks, recreation, and culture. At the conclusion of each chapter, we include relevant goals, objectives, and actions. Following each chapter is an inventory and assessment of the existing parks and facilities. The element ends with an appendix section and a bibliography. The document begins with a brief introduction to the Parks, Recreation, and Culture element and provides the historical perspective, purpose, and need of this plan. We include demographics of the growing city of Gaithersburg community, as well as findings from a 2016 public survey. The section ends with a page listing the mission, vision, philosophy, inclusion, and core value statements as stated here. These were created by staff of our department. We follow the same basic structure for each chapter. For each aspect of Parks, Recreation, and Culture, we discuss why we do what we do and why it's important with citations from recognized publications and studies. Next, we discuss how the topic is addressed in the city of Gaithersburg and what we are currently doing. This is achieved by providing a brief history of how we got to where we currently are, as well as providing a description of the facilities and programs we provide. As stated earlier, we conclude each chapter with a list of goals, objectives, and actions to meet the future needs of our community. These objectives were developed to assure that the efforts of the department will serve to enhance the quality of life of our city and afford members in our community with opportunities that will enrich their lives daily. Our park section discusses park typologies, park programming and demographics, park history and amenities, partners, and private sector programs and venues. We end our park section as well as the recreation and culture sections with the goals, objectives, and actions that we aim to focus on and complete in the future. Throughout our element, we include multiple maps to further illustrate topics discussed in the element. This is an example of one of those maps, proximity to proximity to city parks and open spaces 2018. Other maps in our element include proximity to parks and open spaces 2018 that include city, state, and homeowners associations, arts and culture inventory for 2018, and the art installation map for 2018. After each major section of Parks, Recreation, and Culture, we include an inventory and assessment of existing parks and facilities applicable to each section. The inventory provides an overview and plan for our infrastructure to maintain them, as well as plan new parks and amenities to meet goals. As shown in this example of an existing park, the inventory pages provides an assessment of all the existing facilities and parks or amenities, current features or components, pictures of the location in discussion, and stormwater management considerations if applicable. You will see a blue ribbon on the pages that symbolize if that particular park is a memorial park. We also include a page with possible upcoming park facilities following each inventory of existing parks or facilities. Our recreation section of the element discusses the importance and relevance of this aspect of our work in regards to the community image and sense of social well-being, health and wellness, social equity, positive youth development, healthy aging, education, economic vitality, and safe communities. We also include a discussion of our recreation history, facilities, current recreation programs, partners, and private sector programs and venues. As with the parks and culture, we conclude with goals, objectives, and actions that we aim to focus on and complete in the future. This was probably the hardest of the 3 to complete based on the number of staff, the number of writing styles, and the services that we offer. Our cultural arts section of the element discusses the importance and relevance of the aspect of our work in regards to social well-being, economic vitality, identity, and sense of place, education, health and wellness, social inclusion, and cultural diversity and safe communities. We discussed the history of the city's arts and cultural programs, as well as the establishment of the Cultural Arts Advisory Committee, also known as CAAC, and other committees and boards developed to address the specific needs and intersections with arts and culture. This includes the newly formed Gaithersburg Parks, Arts and Recreation Corporation, or we call it G-Park. It's our 501c3 nonprofit. The Gaithersburg Book Festival Committee, and the Multicultural Advisory Committee. The section ends with a detailed description of city programs and venues, partners, and private programs and venues, and goals, objectives, and actions that we aim to focus on and complete in the future. A major goal of our master plan element is to develop a plan and vision for the role of our department in the future. We studied the city's current and evolving demographics as well as trends over time to anticipate the needs of our community and how we can best meet those needs. The results of these considerations are woven throughout the entire document and can be found in discussions of the population statistics, healthy aging, social inclusion and diversity, and the need for interconnectivity of trails. As we consider upcoming facilities and park development, we plan to develop facilities and programs to meet the needs identified throughout the plan. Our element includes the listed appendices to provide additional and important information about the ongoing work that occurs in the department, including a timeline of major occurrences spanning from 1926 to 2019. Our Parks, Recreation, and Culture element ends with a bibliography of the references used in the entire element. This concludes our presentation. We're extremely grateful to Rob Robinson, who has been meeting with us periodically over the last 3.5 years, shepherding us through the process. We thank you for the opportunity to present our master plan element. The division chiefs and I are happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thanks, Michelle. Nice work.
Thank you.
There was a lot there.
There was, and traditionally agencies hire consultants.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's $100,000.
Yeah.
And that's why it's taken us so long, because we've done it ourselves.
Yeah, yeah.
But honestly, when it was all said and done, we don't have a cookie cutter
Yeah.
master plan that the other Parks and Recreation agency has. Ours is different.
Yeah.
Ours fits within the city's entire master plan. And we're really proud and we're really pleased with the outcome of it.
You should
And
be.
all the staff had
Yeah.
input.
Yeah, you should be. It's really nice. Nicely done.
And the money you save can go into the actual park.
Pardon me?
So the money you save can go into the park.
Exactly.
So how do you want to organize the discussion, or, I mean, do you have anything in mind in terms of?
Just feedback that you may have. I mean,
Okay.
a lot of you have been part of the process
Yeah.
for the last 3 years, and you came to the kickoff meeting, and hopefully, as you peruse through it, it addressed your concerns, your comments, your
Yeah.
guidance.
Okay. If nobody else, I just have a couple of points. They're sort of random, I guess, because I didn't know exactly how we'd facilitate this. And again, I'll just state it emphatically. It's just a really well done piece of work. So congratulations to you and the team, and even you, Rob. Thanks for sticking with us. Even you. So again, in no particular order, as I was reading through it, one of the things I started to kind of notice, and it might be just my own limitation on how involved I am in some parts and not others, in the cultural arts section, so the last big section, that was sort of the most unwieldy for me to kind of wrap my head around when I was reading through the objectives versus what some of the action plans were. And it came down to sort of one point that I don't think is wrong, but just might need some more definition for me. There's sort of a difference in my head between the arts, sort of the manifestation of all the things cultural that happen in the city, whether it's performing arts or visual arts or some of the educational things, and the goal, the loftier goal of sort of sustaining diversity in the city via cultural things. So whether it's the arts manifest it one way, but there's other things that go on too in the city that are about culture, right? Some of the culture is specific to smaller groups of people that live in the city, and some of it has to do with the overall fabric of the city itself. So I found those two things kind of falling, kind of getting in the way of each other. I almost felt like there needed to be a more clear distinction between the sort of packaged culture that we as a city provide, like those performing arts kind of context, or the venues to have it happen, versus the whatever we do to sustain and encourage diversity in the city in kind of a much broader cultural thing. in a cultural way. Does that make any sense, or does that seem like it makes sense? You're looking at me like it makes no sense at all.
No, I'm actually just thinking of all we tried to weave, I think, what you're saying throughout all the chapters.
Well, that's kind of my point. Is I'm wondering if there isn't a clear, in terms of a master plan, not from the goal that you integrate all this, because I think that's a good thing. But when you're talking about here's what we believe is important to the city and here's what we're going to do it, to me there was a little bit of a need to maybe create a sharper focus on the things that look like cultural arts in sort of the traditional definition, which is the concerts and the events and the classes, things like that. And that which we do as a broader city to encourage cultural diversity and the things that may happen more organically or more, more from the perspective of just letting it happen and encouraging it to happen, which isn't necessarily the same kind of investment or the same kind of active focus we might put on something. That was sort of what I was trying to make a distinction between.
Just to help then, is that excuse me, an idea or a concept that you'd want carried through all three sections? Because it sounds like what you're talking about here is more of creating the climate that fosters the inclusiveness of diversity as opposed to an actual programmatic action.
That's the goal. I mean, that
yeah.
Exactly
But if you want it only in that section, that's fine. But I think it would help them if that's a greater theme that carries through both with how we program going forward, how we view recreation, how we view functioning of parks. If you just want it in the one, so I'm just trying to help them so we can be clear on what we want to amend.
I should have ended that with a question mark. It was more of a sense of how I was reading the section that I felt like it might be more potent if there wasn't a focus on the more packageable things that culture represents in the city versus the idea of creating a culture. I mean, it's the same word, but it really is two different kinds of things that you would be deploying people against, or money, or events, or whatever it might be. And it just seemed like they were, even though they fall under that umbrella name, they're really two separate things. So and then what that would do is it would allow the folks that really focus on one or the other to kind of know what it is that the core priorities are. And I'm really speaking from a master plan language. This isn't about the lofty goals. It's really just in trying to figure out how to package it so that ultimately when it has to be executed, there's a little more focus. It's just sort of a hunch I have, and I don't know if that makes sense or if it even helps, but that's one idea. The other question I had was about when you were in the park section, there was a lot about trail systems and some of the infrastructure. How does this plug into, because I know I think we have bicycle trails, bike paths in the transportation plan, right? So do you acknowledge each other? Do you echo it? How does that stuff?
There is two separate. One of the conscious decisions we made early on was scoping. We felt it was more appropriate in discussions when Ollie was here and with Michelle, that for trails that are off-road, it's more appropriate to update them through this element. And then with the upcoming transportation element, we're going to focus more on right-of-way. Bicycle pedestrian facilities and right-of-way that function more as a commuter mode, more so than potentially recreation. So while the existing 2009 element shows both, we really felt the more in-depth discussion for outside of the right-of-way trails belonged in this element.
So maybe then it's just some language that amps up the reference to linkages or integration or something.
We use trail connectivity, interconnectivity.
Yeah, I don't know, whatever seems to make sense with the transportation.
Right, and we talked with Joe Ellen, we talked with Muddy Branch Alliance.
Yeah.
We talked about maintaining trails in the parks.
But we're keeping literally a plan at some point, right? We're going to have an actual connected plan with, 2, 3-wheel, whatever sort of.
That's the hope. We are working with Muddy Branch Alliance and Norba Mountain Biking.
So who would own that sort of, the plan, the actual plan with all the trails that are, bike accessible?
Well, it's something that we've been trying to accomplish, and it's been an interdepartmental team of planning and code, public works, parks and recreation, and we're waiting to have a map of what is existing right now through Norba, a nonprofit mountain biking group, and they haven't had time to pull that together with us.
The goal all along has been to have this done outside of the master plan process because we had that original framework that was done in 2009. Part of the difficulty with this is field mapping, you know, it's private property, it's not trails that are owned by the city. If we begin doing it, there's a potential sense that we would then be obligated for the maintenance of these trails, which is not necessarily the case.
Right.
But we don't want to diminish their importance or their role within the city. So this is why we're sort of leaning on our nonprofit partners to help in this effort.
Right, but slip back into the master plan kind of mode, where you're thinking about the future, where the gaps might be, what you want to do in the future.
Transportation Committee right now is, and it was done, and I think the study is actually in the study stage under the Public Works CIP. They did a gap analysis already. That was done while Ollie
They
was
did a
still.
large scale, but it was at, 1 to a mile.
No, it was going through. It was truly identifying the gaps.
I don't think anybody's seen it outside of the
Yeah.
staff.
So this is
Yeah,
why,
no, I
then
see
it goes
that.
on to the
It's very
consultant.
large. It
So we
showed
want to
the
use
gap
that
analysis,
for the
but it was very
transportation
large.
element.
Yeah, okay. That's good.
Right.
Good.
And
and-
while the nonprofit organization was going to map out the existing network, they were going to prioritize what are the gaps in an order of what they'd like to see us have as connectivity for commuters and recreational riders and things like that.
Good.
Yeah, because there's really no line between them, right? I mean, if you ride, sometimes you go through a park, sometimes you use a street. I mean, and it may
Right, you
be-
ride through, one of the greatest examples was they had shown us how you can go ahead and ride through Malcolm King, and then you can come along Metamune, and then you can
Yeah.
go ahead and hit Lakelands and Muddy Branch, but there were some pieces in there that were missing.
Yeah. So I just think the point would be some language that creates some ownership for where the future vision for that is, that isn't necessarily either transportation or recreation or parks, but it's somehow integrated. I don't know where that lives, but just a comment. I had one more question. So that you mentioned, and I hadn't thought I was reading it, but you mentioned memorial parks, or I guess park naming. Is that what that's about? Is there a policy for that?
We do. We have financial naming rights, and then we have a tribute naming rights. So we have applications for each, and they're available. And
nothing changes with this.
we have a
plan,
policy that Mayor Council approved.
Gotcha. Okay. Great. Jump in, everybody.
Would it be appropriate to put in this master plan those activities for which there are fees and those that are free? I mean, it's obvious a trail is free, but yet recreational facilities, some of them have fees. Is it appropriate?
It is not, unfortunately, because it's changing all of the time. We offer free classes. We have classes that we charge a fee for. We have so many programs and services that it's changing all of the time.
Is it possible then, perhaps at the beginning or in the summary, to make that statement?
Sure.
Appropriately?
Sure.
To just
Absolutely.
so citizens know that there are. I mean, it's tremendous. I mean, look at this report. It's just overwhelming to see a city of our size to have so many parks and so much available to the citizens. It's wonderful. I mean, just my own comment. I was really quite impressed and quite overwhelmed with all that's available.
Yeah. So we have our Go Gaithersburg guide that comes out
Right.
quarterly that lists all of our new programs. And even just for recreation classes alone, I think, Carolyn, we've had 26 new classes that launch just in the new guide for the winter. So, I mean, it's constantly changing based on the trends and the resources available regarding instructors and facilities and what the population wants.
Excellent.
Wonderful.
Just a couple thoughts. One is sort of a generic thought, which is useful or not, much like John's, and I think it's probably in the same sort of genre. It's very much in sort of same genre. When I read through it, you're sort of overwhelmed with all the fantastic information, and it's of course really well organized. And my first thought was, I wonder who we hired to do this, but it was. That sort of, when I look through a master plan, I'm looking for metrics, and I use that word, squishy. I'm not looking for numbers. So we want 10% to be baseball, and whatever. It's not metrics in that sense. It's we as a city, we see in our 10-year vision, which is what this is, right? our sort of overlay of inspiration for the next decade or more, as it usually ends up as, is really, where are the things that we think we are pushing more towards, so that when we go back in 4 years and there's a, on our, at the DS up here, there's something that's proposed to us, we'll have a report from you guys to say, that's exactly what we need, but we'd also love to have sort of a master plan reference to say, yeah, we've been looking for whatever it is, some master category.
Right, but some of those things don't exist yet today.
Right.
For the next 10 years, like, you think about it, 4 years ago, pickleball wasn't even a sport, and now, we went from offering it 1 day a week to 2 days a week to 3 days a week, and then we have pickleball leagues, and we have a pickleball tournament a couple of times a year, but that wasn't in existence.
Year, so.
Right, but we can.
No, I understand, but and that's what I was trying to say when I say metric. It's kind of loose, and I think it's probably not an answerable question. But like when I look through it, I'm looking for some kind of a direction, and I don't think it would be saying we want 2 more pickleball leagues. I think it would be, we believe we have abundance of passive audience events. We need more active, outdoor events. We have, something that sort of says, where we are now, what we're working on now, and what our aspirational sort of metric goal is. But I don't know how to do that. So, and
well, I think we try to address, I believe, what you're speaking of in our objectives or goals by saying that we monitor trends, we try to stay on trends.
Right.
And
which is great.
Some basis for that, but perhaps you're looking for something that said, how will we know if we have kept up with this? Some sort of measurable outcome. Maybe we don't have specifics as to where we're exactly going, but how do we know if we've been successful in managing those trends, staying on top of them, something like that?
To be specific, it's like in 7 years from now, staff is sit down with an applicant, or we're looking at an application. What is the value of some cultural or physical space that applicant has offered to us? I have to reference that master plan, right? So when I reference a master plan and it says that we will track trends and we will do what's best for the city, it doesn't help me as much as there's enough information in the master plan for me to say, this is what we've been doing, this is what was successful, so this will be successful. So I'm not saying, we can't extrapolate from the master plan we have in front of us to say what we want to plan, but I don't know how to sort of get past that.
Do you think that there is so much in the plan right now that it's not clear what the highest priorities are?
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying, yeah. Okay. Like, there's an overwhelming amount of good information in here, and I mean good like value. It's
would potentially more of a qualitative implementation matrix work? If we did it more, not necessarily going to, in 6 months, in 2 years, but if we had more qualitative measures, sort of near term, midterm, long term, because obviously some of the goals, as Michelle was mentioning, are far long range. It's for developments that haven't even occurred. Whereas to your point, there's certain things that just from your standpoint, we have the one recommendation about trying to pursue additional open green space along Frederick Avenue. So if a plan comes in, that's something that could be at the front of the radar if we know we're missing something. I mean, I think that's something critically we could go through, as long as it's not doing, the punch list of it. By 7 years, you must have increased, parks by 10% or this.
I think it's adjectives. I think it's more of a narrative that says something like, we know we're doing this really well, we know we have this, but over the next 5, 10, whatever years, we'd like to and either bolster programming, add substantially to the hard resources, whatever those things are. But it's sort of a paraphrase of a lot of what is now laced throughout the whole document, but maybe given to higher level. So
would you like to see like an executive summary with sort of the priorities?
That could be really clear and very useful.
Out with what Rob's talking about,
it
like
might help a lot of people
midterm,
at least begin to digest how much is
long
there.
term.
Yeah, just get a sense of what the really big picture priorities are.
Sure. Like one of the big ones that jumps out is our aging demographics and our need to tailor our programming more towards
that's a great sentence.
Towards seniors.
More, right? Bolster,
correct.
Add, improve.
I wanted to talk to one. Anyway, I
When we
didn't
said
know, I don't know,
senior, we
maybe I
weren't
didn't
talking
see
about
it.
Why'd you chime in right there?
Right. Maybe I didn't see it, but is there like a section where you talk about access for folks with special needs or? can
That's
we talk a
woven
little bit
into
about
each
that?
chapter
Okay.
as well under our
Okay.
actions, goals,
Because that, I
objectives.
mean, it would be nice to
Right.
highlight that because I know my wife now works with a lot of, she's part of the special needs team at Gaithersburg High School, and we're very sensitive to that now.
Right, we are
And,
too.
Yeah, I know you
Right,
are,
and we
but-
have,
but
right, we
if
have
it could be
inclusion.
pointed out.
Right, we have inclusion in every chapter,
Uh-huh.
under the goals,
Yeah, yeah,
actions,
I saw some.
objectives.
It would just be nice if we could, people can look for that, because I'm really sensitive to that now.
Right, we
I'm
can
sure
highlight
people
that
are.
in our executive summary
Yeah.
with.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the thing that would impress, one of the things, just to tie into what you're saying, that impressed me the
Sure.
most is that that's woven in, the environmental issues are woven in, and cultural diversity are woven in a
Right.
way
Correct.
that we wouldn't have had just
Right.
15,
Right.
20 years ago.
Yeah.
It would have been, here's our chapter on inclusivity, here's our chapter on ADA, here's
Correct.
and it would have been, and that's not good.
Yeah, right, you gotta make it
It's all
mainstream.
integrated,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
It sounds like the big takeaway is a summary, an executive summary.
Because this is a
Which
lot
it
of
hits the
information.
free
Cut to the
and
chase.
paid programs, it hits the cultural climate, it hits all of this.
Well, I think it helps, I think
Inspirational
ultimately, it'll help policymakers, like over the next 2 or 3
Right.
terms, to really just remind everybody what the priorities are, so that it's not, you don't have to spend a lot of time mining for it. The folks that do it every day, you guys will always have that, in mind, but there are a lot of folks that will help affect this, whether they're outside partners or sort of internal. It's always good to have maybe that higher level hit list on them.
But,
Yeah.
but we gotta say, this is fantastic.
Yeah.
This is amazing, and you all do a great job.
Well, it's a great advertisement for
Yeah,
the city, just it's
yeah.
such a great inventory of all the
Yeah,
great things we're doing.
right.
It's great.
But
But
now you'll be giving the talk next year on, here's the template for other cities, and,
You never know.
for
Hire
free,
yourself out
and
as,
it'll be a lot of them.
consultants.
But I'm thinking about that. I'm the president of the Maryland Planning Commission Association.
See, for
and
free, you're gonna be lecturing for free.
I'm gonna come talk to you because I would love for you to maybe give a presentation at our next annual conference.
you got a really cool.
Where's the
little-
location?
But we did.
Sunny Florida, California?
Well, of course, we did. It's in Maryland. Yeah, it's in Maryland. It's in Maryland. It's of course hosted here.
It was in Hawaii 2 years ago.
But the
No.
next one's gonna be in Aberdeen, but I'd still
We'd
I'd
be
still
happy
love
to.
for you to come and talk. I mean, I'm just, but,
Always show,
I'm
always
thinking.
show that guy.
What else do
So-
you guys need tonight? What
So,
else?
so
more thing.
one last technical thing based upon this summary. So what I'm hearing, just to help staff, because we would like to maintain our advertising dates just for longer range calendars. Is this something that you almost envision as a separate summary chapter to end, to allow the reader from a flow standpoint to go through the document and then have a section at the end that does this summarization, lays out, the qualitative, timing measures and the
Beginning's
overall
always-
greater
I think the beginning-
themes.
Beginning's always
beginning.
Probably leads.
I'm just worried if you put it at the beginning, it's going to
No,
be
I
out of
read it.
context, so is it going to be understood?
Oh,
And will they not read the rest of the document?
Yeah.
yeah, right.
Well, that's an executive summary.
But
I know.
yes, I think you guys can figure that out, right?
Yeah, formatting is
Yeah.
your call. And
Again,
better
just
than anybody.
if there was a
I-
preference.
So one more before we ditch out. One more thing that can help us going forward is we still have a lot of both large properties to be developed, surprisingly, in the city, and then a lot of smaller properties up and down the CD zones, right? So we're going to be looking at a lot of smaller parks, a lot of very small parks that are a lot of things. They're difficult to design. They're difficult to get from smaller landowners, a large portion of their property. They're difficult to maintain. Quite a bit of money, and they're very difficult to program. So it's we have these two sort of private worlds that are going to be coming into this group and asking for approval or advice, or to staff approval and advice, and some metrics from you guys. Again, it's a bad word. I don't really know what it means, but some idea from you guys as to how we can begin to approach small pocket parks. If they're private, art, public art. I mean, some of that's programmed. These guys program it in some way. It's not a passive piece. So what I don't want to see is us approving just passive parks. these sort of a little bit of green space with a piece of art in the middle. We want that art to be something that's programmed in some way, right? To activates the street, activates 355, activates the businesses that are along 355.
And we were part of like the development of Spectrum and their outdoor space,
Right, it's a great
where they
example.
have outdoor concerts
Right.
and their interactive water features. So we do provide comment on all of that,
Right.
and we're happy to be as involved as you want us to be.
But I guess, and it doesn't have to be in the master plan, but maybe make it be a separate document that you can help us with. But where does you and your staff want to sort of start and stop at scale? Is a half-acre park within these areas as part of your master plan? Something you're looking for, and if it is, what are the sort of long list of items you might want to program that with? And then us and staff can start looking for places where those parks can be, right? So
And it might even be more, less quantitative, but more descriptive that leads to the quantity. So for example,
Yeah.
you want team sport play area, you want, individual discovery, whatever those things, those descriptions that would lead to.
performance venues for 10 people, performance venues for
Yeah,
100 people.
yeah. Yeah.
It's something that can help the city plan forward if we had from you guys, the experts, what it is that we think we want from an infrastructure standpoint, park infrastructure standpoint going forward. So that's a big, I know that's not your profession, but it's like, that's getting advice from you, not just on each application as it comes in, but looking forward as to what you're looking for infrastructures, kind of.
Our wish
That's a
list.
tough question. That's a tough question.
Our wish list of what we'd like to
Yeah.
see in the city.
Right.
Well,
And some metrics. So,
and especially looking at some of the mapping graphics that show really where the holes are in the park fabric.
It was a fascinating exhibit. Yeah.
It's a really fascinating exhibit, and it overlays with where a lot of the potential for redevelopment is. So, looking at the big picture, what sort of things do you want to see in those areas to sort of fill out the network?
Right, and it shows, like, that exhibit's a great example because it shows these park deserts, but some of them are actually, new urbanist dense developments with 50 pocket parks within that piece. It just doesn't show on the master plan because they're tiny and they're all private, right? So even though they're public, they're not publicly maintained. They're not capital P public parks. So I'm always confused.
Totally on board. That this is part of the reason one of our original goals when we were talking about the scoping was to finally develop typologies for types of parks, and that there's a geographic component to that. And we made it. We felt as a team, a collective team, we thought it was very important that one of the other graphics shows all the stuff, because again, one of our overriding themes that we had overall was the city can't do everything. There is a role for the private sector. So there is the, Michelle's great map about the city-owned and maintained facilities, but then we do have the other one that shows all those little individual pocket parks also in there, to show that, the public, the community, the greater community as a whole has a role to play in this too. So I think from the Planning Commission standpoint, looking at the typologies, I think we as planning staff, when we come forward, may have recommendations. Parks and Rec does participate in our DRTs. So again, I think going forward with redevelopment projects, there will be a more cohesive recommendation following this element about what is proper. I mean, I can tell you right now, Montgomery Planning is completing their design guideline for urban active spaces. They're doing a whole design thing, and that's something that should be adopted. We may want to incorporate by reference also.
It's a good document.
Yeah, it is a really good document. It's just beginning the public hearing process. Right. But we believe all of these things are important, and that's why we wanted to start taking these first steps with this master plan.
Yeah, I don't know that has to be in the master plan. You're right. Yeah.
But the typologies we thought was important to start laying out.
Right, and then one of the great things that we're proud of as a city is the parks proximity map. So it shows that 81.5% of residents live within a quarter mile of a park.
Right.
98.6% live within a half mile of a park. All residents live within 0.82 miles of a park. But if you take into account the Great Seneca, our Seneca State Park, and all of our city parks, 96.4% live within a quarter mile of a park within the city. So, I mean, we're very blessed in the city of Gaithersburg with our amenities.
I like your timeline. The timeline's super. See how
We've
it's
grown.
become. Yeah, it's grown. It's like
1955?
right, we're 26 to 55 or 51 or whatever, and then you start like doing stuff every year. It's super.
Good. Any other comments?
Great work, thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to point out that
Yes.
Michelle is here tonight presenting to you on her birthday.
Thanks, John.
Birthday, Michelle.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
He held that in for almost, was it 20 minutes now?
That's why I showed up.
No, he said let her go.
Well, I hope you're enjoying the day.
It's been a great day.
Despite the night work you had to do.
Yeah, just appreciate your support.
And thanks for coming tonight, appreciate it.
Yep.
Yes.
Thank you. Rob, what's next?
We will circle as a team, figure out our strategy to address some of these comments, and then again, hopefully this will be formally hitting the streets next week, and as we've done in the past, there'll be a memo from me notifying the Planning Commission and Council that it's been formally advertised. We'll start the project page on the master plan, start receiving comments over 60 days, working our way to a joint public hearing.
Okay, I guess I should just ask that question for the record. The Commissioner, you have no reservation with moving this forward to
Move
public
forward.
Oh, no.
hearing?
Go right ahead.
Oh, no.
Okay, great.
Great.
Consensus.
Thank you all. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rob. All right, go celebrate your birthday
It's okay.
now. All right, that takes us from the commission. Danny, may I start with you?
I don't have anything right now, but I will have something next week.
Okay.
You keep threatening. Next week?
Yeah, I know.
Next week, no one's
It's
gonna be
killing
here.
me
We're
now.
gonna be here next
It's
week.
killing me.
I've been working on a summary, and I haven't finished it, but I'll bring it.
Don't
I'll bring
oversell it,
Bring
man.
bring it.
Matt?
Nothing for me.
Well, don't oversell it.
Don't oversell it.
Nothing from me.
Bill, nothing? Okay. So, from staff, who wants to jump in?
I got some. So we received an application or a request for an application to add a new 76 square foot vestibule at 25 West Watkins Mill Road, excuse me. The city code requires planning commission to review and approve those, unless delegated to planning staff. We think it's fairly minor and requesting that you delegate.
I think a public hearing is another.
We should get our council.
We're gonna need a bigger room, though.
And Ray has to wear a bow tie.
Any objections to?
No.
No,
objection.
not at all.
Assigning this to staff? Okay. Do we need a vote official?
I think that'd be fine.
Consensus?
Consensus is fine.
Okay, good. All right, what else we got?
Reminders and dates. Our next planning commission meeting is February 20th. And we have a tentative public hearing scheduled right now for joint public hearing, for an SDP on Monday, March 18th. I believe we've polled
Polling is out there,
everyone. So keep it on your calendars.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think I responded.
Thanks, Greg.
No.
She was giving that
I said a
disapproving look. I thought she was
thing.
gonna look at me, but I.
No, I haven't answered that. Thanks, Greg. John, Trudy, John.
I have a couple of things tonight. Trudy sent out an invitation, I believe, last week regarding the visioning retreat that is scheduled for Saturday, February 23rd with the Mayor and Council. It's all day. It's 8:30 to 5 o'clock. It does include breakfast and lunch. It's at the Benjamin Gaither Center, and we do encourage your attendance, but do let us know if you plan to attend so we can get the accurate count for meals. The big picture goal is really to guide policy for the city for the next 30 years or so. The discussion will be limited to the mayor and council, and we have 2 facilitators that are coming from VCU. Staff will probably participate some, but it is all based on an exhaustive database report, which is the final version is due this Friday with an executive summary as well. Our plan is to send that out to the mayor and council on next Tuesday, the 12th. And that will, and then we'll probably also send that out to you all and the senior leadership team as well. So anyway, we encourage you to attend. I think it'll be an interesting day.
I can't attend things where I can't speak. It doesn't work. Can't speak. You have to gag me and tie me to a chair.
Understood.
Understood.
Is the agenda structured such that we could attend for part of the day? Is that appropriate, or do you want attendance for the whole thing, if at all? Or
we haven't actually finalized the agenda yet.
Okay.
We're still working on it with the consultants. We've got the research team and we've got the facilitators, and we've got several meetings plan for the next 2 weeks to set up the agenda, but generally, the morning will be presentations, disseminating all the information that has been assembled, and then probably the big policy discussions will happen in the afternoon. That's our guess.
Okay.
Cool.
So secondly, next Tuesday, the joint lecture series, the Callens Community Foundation and and I've got handouts, the Gaithersburg Planning Lecture Series continues next Tuesday, and our speaker next Tuesday, this is at the Arts Barn, wine reception at 7 o'clock, lecture starting at 7:30.
Are they bringing chocolate? Never mind the wine.
Eric Reed, CEO and founder of Spag and Vola. My understanding is he is bringing chocolate. But it's a very intriguing title, A Program to Add Value in Improving Lives of Cocoa Agriculture While Building the Framework Towards Wealth Creation. Pretty interesting topic, so it should be interesting.
Yeah, I know, if you ever done the tour there at their shop, that whole just trade, fair trade kind of approach is really integrated into what they do and how they've built their farm in, I guess, Dominican Republic or something.
Yes.
You should hear more about it, yeah.
Dominican Republic, yeah. So that's it for me tonight.
That's cool.
Thanks, John. Great. Moving on down there.
I have some sad news. Today, I learned that Basil Waters passed away on Saturday, February 2nd. Basil served on the Planning Commission from November of 1986 until December of 1999. Before that, he was on the city's Downtown Review Committee, which had a lot to do with the revitalization of the downtown in the 80s, and he also was on the Historic Railroad Task Force. He was vice chair for 6 years, and then he was chair from 1994 until 1999. Commissioner John Schlichting took his place as chair of the Planning Commission in the end of 99. He was also honored as Citizen of the Year in 2000 by the mayor and city council. And he also had a fabulous store, which was the center, one of the center stores in Old Town, and still is. He was advertised on all those manuals of many different types of small appliances that you could get fixed, and you could get it right. People came from miles around to come. But he was quite a city servant for the city, and just wanted to let you know about that.
Thanks for letting us know. Is the city planning any sort of memorial or anything, or is there any?
I don't know. It's unfortunately they put the obituary in the post the same day as the funeral, so we're still. I just sent a bunch of things to Britta Monaco of our public information to let the mayor and council know about it too.
Sure. All right, thanks, Trudy. Anything else, Frank? No, tonight. Ray, you stuck it out to this late. Anything to add?
He wants you to sign those plats.
Okay.
Yes. 8 of them.
Very good. If there's nothing else, have a good evening. We're adjourned.